Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Environmental Coffee House. Hi, Jennifer. It
Hello, Sandy.
looks
Hello,
like
everyone.
we've got everybody's joining us. I had an intro, but I used our regular intro so we could say hello, and I do have a surprise for you, actually. A little surprise. So let's say hi. Hello, Hans and the Wheels and Rollins Switch. Kim, thank you for moderating as always. Karen and Bela. Matt, everybody's here. Book Hermit, Grateful Dan, great to see you. Melanie, Evolution, Wendy, Darlin, Chris Bobbins. All right, we have a show tonight. David McCaig. We have a show tonight. What's been happening, Jen?
Well, we have a great show tonight. Sandy's going to start with a mysterious tweet, which she will show you. And we actually are diving into extinction big time. So we are going to start off with DW. Dinosaurs lived on a scorching planet. Why can't humans? Right?
All right.
And these articles are all just out. And then we're going to jump over to the BBC. Recent rapid ocean warming ahead of El Nino alarms scientists.
Alarms. Shock.
Be afraid. Be very,
afraid.
very afraid. All right. Then we have one from The Nation. Will AI lead to human extinction? Wow.
Ooh.
So interesting. The byline on it is, we can create a world where artificial intelligence meets its spectacular promise to improve the lives of all humanity, but only if we work together. Well, you decide.
Yeah.
All right. Then we've got something from a URL, The History of Yesterday, Universe 25. The horrifying study that predicted human extinction.
Yeah.
And this is one of the longest and most important scientific experiments talking about this very thing.
I think so.
And then we're running over to the Scientific American. Will humans ever go extinct? It's probably a matter of when and how, not if, we humans will meet our doom.
Well, we will
And
anyway.
we're finishing up with one of our faves, of course, Jessica Wildfire. We love Jessica
Yes,
Wildfire.
we do. Yes, we do. All right.
And she says, does it really help to keep beating up on doomers? I don't think so. And that, my dear,
that should be fun.
That is our show tonight.
Yes, that is our show. So I'm going to start out with my little surprise for Jennifer, something I did for her that is, well, it's a little updated.
Do you want to tell the history of it?
Well, you can.
Oh, yeah.
All right. I found it.
You go ahead. No, you go ahead.
Jennifer made it originally. And
How long ago?
Oh, my gosh. I think it was 18 or 17.
I think it was 2017 at the
Yeah, Trump was president. Yep.
Yeah.
And she didn't know I was making it, so I updated it and I fiddled with the sound, and I think you guys will like it. So here we
Arctic ice melting like Mr. Whippy on the stove. Ocean life extinguished, lightning fast like Messi facing goal. Night temperatures rising like the price of granary rolls. Psychopaths delight in buying shares in black gold. We're doomed, it's on the horizon. We're doomed, I'm not just hypothesizing. We're doomed, ignore hysterical deniers. We're doomed, our future's on fire. Paris climate talks took place at a time when global temperatures were 1 degree above baseline. They agreed to limit rises to no more than 1.5, but they got a massive shock only months down the line. On Unprecedented warming at an accelerating rate. February's warning failed to reignite debate. Nobody's talking, not even heads of state, about the mass extinction that is clearly underway. Species disappearing at a speed we've never seen. But Brexit fills magazines and the screens on our TVs. Starbucks Costa coffee cups fill our lands and seas between. Plankton replaced by plastic on which everything else feeds. Should we leave or should we stay? It is a trivial aside from the real issue today, which is how do we survive in a world with stagnant oceans in which everything has died, in a world submerged by high tides where remaining land is fried. Population explodes as ice caps recede, fresh water under threat bringing society to its knees. Drought-starving farmland, way more than we've ever seen. Trout, carp and salmon, seahorses disappear. We thought we had a century or more to face our fears. More likely within 20 years the force of nature will be clear. No sloths, bears or badgers, no plants, birds or trees. No clocks, chairs or tractors, no more humanity. We're doomed, it's on the horizon, we're doomed. I'm not just hypothesizing, we're doomed. Ignore hysterical deniers, we're doomed. Our future's on fire. Even those who know what is really going on, they've still got toasters, phones, tablets, TVs turned on. They still don't stop and think about the impact that they're having. And I'm the worst offender, just like you and all our families. We just can't be trusted with products to consume. Democracy plus media means America elects a fool. This leads me to one conclusion, it's unfortunate but true. We need a global dictator, but one with benevolent views. A person versed in science who'll silence corporate news. Their military might only exercise to stop us lighting fossil fuels. And once that's all sorted, just one thing to finally do. Throw us all a solar panel, say good luck, go find some food. It's not a happy future, but let's not be blind to the truth. The earth is changing faster than any time, what can we do? We're all much too distracted, half of us don't even believe it's true. While endless wealth is extracted from our addiction to dirty fuels. We're doomed, it's on the horizon, we're doomed. I'm not just hypothesizing, we're doomed. Ignore hysterical deniers, we're doomed. Our future's on fire.
I hope you like that.
That was a real blast from the past.
You start. I think I ripped it from Extinction Radio, and I think it was one of yours, and I updated it with 1080.
Yeah, no, it was great. And you made all the overlays and the animations. I loved what you did. It was so great. Thank you for making that, Sandy.
Well, that was for you. I don't know, something's going on in the chat, but Donald's all right. Anyway. All right, let's start with this tweet I have. I'm going to change us to the reading overlay, and here we go. So we're going to start with a tweet. And it was from Donald McCarthy. And Donald's been following all of us for a very long time on in this, in our genre. And it's called, he says, we are spoiled for choice when it comes to extinction. From the mundane, be it boring asteroid strike, to the exciting nuclear war, to the predictable climate collapse, or the novel fabulous virus, I tells you, we're wallowing in extinctions. Be it mud. P.S. Hi, Sandy. I thought it was a good way to start. I liked it. I really did. I thought it was great. So thank you, Donald. I don't know if you're here, but he's in Europe, so he's probably sleeping. So we're going to start with DW. And there's a video with this also, and I'm going to start with dinosaurs lived on a scorching planet. Why can't humans? So millions of years ago, the planet was much warmer than it was today, yet it was teeming with life. So why does the climate crisis pose an existential threat to people? Back in the times when 25-meter-long ocean dinosaurs swam the seas, and the T-Rex and the Triceratops roamed the ground and we walk today, Earth was a hot place to live. Very hot. During the Mesozoic era, hot. How hot, Jennifer? Hot.
Hot. It's very hot.
During that era, from about 250 to 66 million years ago, the concentrations of CO2 in the atmosphere were around 16 times higher than now, creating a greenhouse climate with temperatures on average 6 to 9 degrees warmer than today. Scientists assume that methane from dinosaurs burping and farting, similar to cows today, and where's my fart sound when I need it? Similar to cows today, contributed to global warming at the time. But the main reason was the supercontinent of Pangaea was slowly starting to drift and break apart. Not only did this ultimately lead to the creation of the continents as we know them today, but it also led to a changing climate. The movement of the entire landscapes and continents caused enormous volcano eruptions that spewed climate-damaging gases into the atmosphere, thereby heating the planet. It also led to acid rains, acidification of the ocean, and a radical change in the chemical compositions on the land and in the water, causing a mass extinction that paved the way for the rise of the dinosaurs. So, were the dinosaurs, were they adapting better? Today, we are still a long way from the kind of temperatures that made the planet a hothouse during the Mesozoic era. However, by burning fossil fuels such as coal, oil, and gas at unprecedented levels, humans have already warmed the planet by 1.1 degrees Celsius over pre-industrial levels. I think that sounds like a little hope there. As a result, ecosystem health is deteriorating faster than ever before, with dramatic impacts for people as well as land, forest, and marine ecosystems across the world. Scientists say the average duration of the drought in Central America will increase by 5 months, with 1.5 degrees of warming by 8 months and about 2 degrees by 19 months, should temperatures rise to an additional 3 degrees. They also say the world will reach the 3-degree mark by the end of the century if greenhouse gas emissions continue unchecked, leading to unprecedented floods, storms, sea level rise, and extreme heat waves. Scientists, therefore, speak of the climate crisis as an existential threat to humans. The fact that the dinosaurs coped well with the climate conditions in which they lived is mainly due to one decisive factor, and that's time. Although CO2 concentration in the atmosphere was really high back in the Mesozoic era, it rose very slowly. So while it previously took mighty volcanic activity and millions of years to warm the planet by several degrees, but by burning fossil fuels, humans have managed to radically change the climate within the centuries. And I'm going to play this video for you from the article because I think it's pretty good. It's worth a shot to listen to, so let's go.
Of the authors of the State of the Climate Report and a member of the World Meteorological Organization's expert team on climate monitoring and assessment. Now, how alarming is the current situation from your perspective as one of the authors of this report?
Yeah, well, the report shows that we continue to see warming. As you've said, the last 8 years have been the 8 warmest on record. Even with La Nina having a slight cooling influence on last year. And with that warming, we see more and more extremes of certain types, particularly heat waves, but also climate change is connected to some droughts and decreasing risk of some floods. And whilst the exact locations of the extremes vary from year to year, last year the most significant heat waves were in Europe and China. This year, so far, it's been Southeast Asia. The number of these events is just going up and up as temperatures warm.
Now, there's been lots of talk about green and renewable energy, but what is the real impact of it on mitigating climate change?
Well, every bit helps. So fundamentally, to stabilise the climate at any level, we need to eventually reach net zero emissions of greenhouse gases. And from our perspective, replacing energy that's generated using fossil fuels with energy that's generated not using fossil fuels, gets us closer to that goal. There's obviously still a very long way to go, but we are seeing a rapid increase in the proportion of electricity that's generated from renewable sources in many parts of the world, and that's at least one way we're heading in the right direction, perhaps not fast enough.
Now, just a couple of days ago, Germany permanently switched off its last 3 remaining nuclear power stations. Now, with nuclear power being a nearly carbon-free source of energy, do you think that was a clever decision?
Germany had its own reasons for making those decisions. Nuclear, as you say, is effectively a zero emissions form of power, but it's also very expensive to build. So, in most of the world, new nuclear is not really cost competitive with other zero emissions energy sources, but clearly in those places that already have it, potentially forms part of the mix of low emissions power system.
Do you think there will be a point of no return when it's just too late to fight climate change?
Well, it's really a question of how much climate change we'll see. We're already seeing significant climate change. We are already committed to some more climate change, even if we stopped emissions tomorrow. It takes about 20 years for the whole of the climate system to catch up with that change in emissions profile. But ultimately, how quickly we reach net zero will determine what level the climate stabilises at, and whether it stabilises at a level somewhere near the 1.5 degree threshold that government's committed to aiming towards in the Paris Agreement, or whether it ends up being higher than that. And, there's clear evidence from IPCC reports and elsewhere that the higher warming goes above 1.5 degrees, the more impacts there will be across many sectors of the world.
Dr. Blair Truin there, one of the co-authors of the State of the Climate Report. Thank you very much for sharing your expertise with us.
All right. So George Fuellner of the Potsdam Institute for Climate Impact Research said a slower pace of warming gives nature the chance to adapt. Animal species that don't love the heat can move to higher latitudes, towards the poles, for example, or they can also adapt through evolutionary processes. He said as long as warming occurs slowly and its impacts don't hit a highly technical civilization with existing infrastructure, it has largely not been a big problem thus far. But he added that extreme heat could render given regions uninhabitable for certain animal species because there are simply certain physiological limits for animals and humans. Every year, hundreds of thousands die worldwide because of extreme heat. Even dinosaurs get problems when things go too fast. For humans to adapt to a warmer planet and extreme storms, floods, droughts, and heat waves that higher temperatures promise to bring, and we're already seeing that, right, Jennifer?
Yeah,
it would require a global investment of more than $300 billion, or in what is that, UK, to pounds, 272 billion. That was lira. Okay, by
Euro.
Oh yeah, the ye. That's a euro. It's one currency. By 2030 alone, billions more are needed for the energy transition to stop continued runaway heating. History shows that the 5 great mass extinctions the planet has so far witnessed were all connected to radical heating or cooling of the planet, as well as changes in the chemical cycles in the sea or the land. So, for example, the impact of an asteroid 67 million years ago created an enormous cloud of dust and caused violent volcanic eruptions all over the world, darkening the sky and radically cooling the climate. This drastic and comparatively rapid cooling left little time for adaptation and spelled the end of the dinosaur era. They left. Goodbye, dinosaurs.
Goodbye, dinosaurs.
Goodbye, dinosaurs. So basically, they're gone. So I'm going to just go. In a mass extinction, at least 3/4 of all species disappear within about 3 million years. Some scientists looking at current extinction rates think we are in the midst of the 6th mass extinction. You think? Okay.
I think so.
I think so. Yes. And in the next few decades alone, it is estimated that at least 1 million out of 8 million known species are in danger of disappearing forever. Many scientists believe that the real numbers could be much higher. So I thought that was a good introduction. They're not telling us we're going extinct in 2026 because we're not. But I'm going to hand it over then to you, Jen.
Absolutely. So we've got one up from the BBC. We're going into oceanic warming. Recent rapid ocean warming ahead of El Nino alarms scientists. A recent rapid heating of the world's oceans has alarmed scientists concerned that it will add to global warming. Wonder if they're right. Heat plus heat equals more heat. This month, global sea level surface hit a new record high temperature. It has never warmed this much this quickly. Scientists don't fully understand why this has happened. I don't know. But they worry that combined with other weather events, the world's temperature could reach a concerning new level by the end of next year. Scientists believe that a strong El Nino weather event, a weather system that heats the ocean, will also set in over the next months. Warmer ocean can kill off marine life, lead to more extreme weather, and raise sea levels. They also are less efficient at absorbing planet-warming greenhouse gases. So here's a graph. This is the rising temperatures in the world's oceans, and this is the average sea surface temperatures for a 9-year average period from 2011 to 2020. That's not very long. So that average period compared to the average period of 1951 to 1980, which is consequently a 30 average. So the last 9 years as opposed to the 30-year average between 1951 and 1980. Look at this. So interesting, right? Exactly what we would expect. Exactly. Look at the big, what's the first thing that kind of draws your eye? It's that eye right below Greenland. See that blue blue petal? That's Greenland's ice melt right there. That's why that's so cool.
Plop,
Everything
plop.
else, plop, plop, fizz, fizz. What a relief it is not.
Nah.
And everything along the coast, like look at the northeast coast of the United States and then kind of follow the coastal rivers as it goes, because that's the Gulf Stream. It kind of kisses the United States in the northeast and it goes across. Now, look at England in the UK, right? That place is not heating up very much at all. It's actually kind of cool. Oh, God, that cat almost disconnected this.
Where's my cat sound? Nope, that's not the cat.
Yeah.
There it is.
It's a risk. But so England is going to remain cool a lot longer, and it's pretty much because Greenland's going to be cooling it. Look at that. But all around the the margins, the continental margins, especially in the north, you can see how the ocean is really, really heating up. There's another pool of cool water. If you look down at the tip of South America, where Antarctica is, there's a lot of melt coming off of West Antarctica, which is down there in the Pacific Ocean. I think you can see that too. So, an important study published last week with little fanfare highlights a worrying development. Over the past 15 years, the Earth has accumulated almost as much heat as it did in the previous 45 years, with the extra energy going into the oceans. This is having a real-world consequence. Not only did the overall temperature of the oceans hit a new record in April this year, in some regions the difference from long-term was enormous. In March, sea surface temperatures off the east coast of North America were as much as 13.8 C higher.
Wow.
Wow.
Pretty heavy.
Wow.
Pretty heavy.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's magnitudes.
Yes.
Let me finish that sentence. It just kind of blew me away, guys. Listen to this. In March, sea surface temperatures off the east coast of North America were as much as 13.8 C higher than the 1981 to 2011 average. So that's amazing.
It's boiling the fish before we even get it out of the ocean to eat it.
Oh my God. Oh my God. That is absolutely amazing.
We're definitely going to have to bring Jim on to talk about this specifically.
Yes. It's not yet well established why such a rapid change and such a huge change is happening, said Karina von Schuckman, the lead author of a new study and oceanographer at the research group of Mercator Ocean International. Maybe you should send Karina over to talk to Jim. What do you think?
Yeah, really, maybe.
If she thinks it's not established. I mean, they're
We've
shocked.
been talking about it for years.
They don't understand.
Yeah. It's been years we've been talking about this happening, potentially.
Okay. And denial is a very tough thing to deal with. Quote, we have doubled the heat in the climate system in the last 15 years. I don't want to say this is climate change or natural variability or a mixture of both. We don't know yet. I guess they need to let maybe 50 or 60 years go by and then figure it out. But we do see this change. Okay, sorry. Am I being mean?
No.
One factor.
We can have a little snark, baby.
Is a little bit snarky. Sorry, Karina. One factor that could be influencing the level of heat going into the ocean is, interestingly, a reduction in pollution from shipping. Let's take this on board. In 2020, the International Maritime Organization put in place a regulation to reduce the sulfur content of fuel burned by ships. This has led to a rapid impact, reducing the amount of aerosol particles released into the Arctic. So this is the aerosol masking effect in action, right? They're not putting that really sooty stuff that's, and so consequently we're getting global dimming, which is raising the temperature. But aerosols, that dirty, the air also help reflect the heat back into space. Removing them may have caused more heat to enter the waters. What are the impacts of ocean warming? The average surface temperature of the world seas has increased by around 0.9 C compared to pre-industrial levels, with 0.6 coming in the last 40 years alone. This is less than increases. This must have been translated from something. It's really weird English. This is less than increases in air temperature over the land, which have risen by more than 1.5 degrees C since pre-industrial times. This is because much more energy is needed to heat the water than land, and because oceans absorb heat far below their surface. Even this seemingly small average increase has significant real-world consequences. Number one, loss of species. More frequent and less intense marine heat waves lead to mass mortality of sea life. This is particularly damaging for coral reefs. Number two, more extreme weather. Increased heat in the upper ocean surface means hurricanes and cyclones can pick up more energy. This means they become more intense and longer lasting. Number three, sea level rise. Warmer water takes up more space, known as thermal expansion, and can greatly accelerate the melting of glaciers from Greenland and Antarctica that flows into the ocean. This raises global sea levels, increasing the risk of coastal flooding. Number four, less ability to absorb CO2. The oceans currently take up about a quarter of the greenhouse gas emissions. Warmer waters have less ability to absorb CO2. If the ocean takes up less CO2 in the future, more would accumulate in the atmosphere, further warming the air and oceans. Wow. Another important factor that is worrying scientists is the weather phenomenon known as the El Niño Southern Oscillation.
Finally, El Niño.
For the past 3 years, this naturally occurring event has been in a cooler phase called La Niña and has helped keep global temperatures in check. But researchers now believe that a strong El Niño is forming, which will have significant implications for the world. So let's take a look at these early signs of the El Niño. This is an interesting graphic. Average sea surface temperature in March 2023 compared to March, the 30-year average from 1951 to 1980. So let us see, and what we can see right away is that in general, there is more than 3 degrees of warming all along the coastal margins. And you can see the beginnings of the El Niño starting to form. So right now, see that blue pole, that's that blue color right on the west coast of North America?
Yep.
That's the last of the La Niña. Okay. That's the last of the cooling waters of the La Niña. Now, what you don't see in this picture is the Philippines and that whole area of the Pacific Ocean.
This is not interactive. You can't make it go around.
But I'll tell you, it starts over there. And what you are going to see is the beginning of a line that goes all across the equator from the Philippines that hits Peru. Now, do you see South America, how you've got this kind of bubble of warmth on the west coast of South America? That's interesting to note. So that is actually going to increase, and there's going to be kind of a streak of red from an ocean anomaly, temperature anomaly perspective. That's going to go all the way across. And interestingly enough, take a look at the bottom, and you can see the evidence of all the melting water in Antarctica.
Yeah, you can. There you can.
Isn't that interesting?
It's
so
interesting and scary.
It's scary. Quote, the Australian Bureau's model does go strongly for a strong El Niño, and it has been trending that way, and all the climate models have been trending that way to a stronger event, said Hugh McDowell from Australia's Bureau of Meteorology. Mr. McDowell cautioned that predictions at this point of the year are less reliable. Other researchers are more bullish. A coastal El Niño has already developed off the shores of Peru and Ecuador. Did you see that? That was that big red puddle. Yeah. And the experts believe a fully formed event will follow with implications for global temperatures. If a new El Niño comes on top of it, we will probably have additional global warming between 0.2 to 0.25. I mean, that would be like instantaneous, almost a quarter of a degree C, a lot. Jesus. Instantaneously, said Dr. Joseph Ledger from Potsdam Institute for Climate Research.
And
The impact.
now we have a video.
Oh, right.
Let's play the video. Yeah,
Let's play the
both
video.
articles have videos.
Floods,
Videos.
droughts, and record-breaking heat waves, all potential impacts of the climate pattern known as El Nino. So what exactly is El Nino, and how does it affect weather patterns around the world? Well, in a nutshell, it is a warming of the sea surface in the central and eastern Pacific Ocean. Usually, easterly trade winds blow warmer waters westwards in the equatorial Pacific, allowing colder water to well up around the west coast of South America. However, during an El Nino event, temperatures in the central and eastern Pacific rise by at least half a degree for several months. The trade winds weaken, even reverse, so they start to blow in a westerly direction. In South America, this can lead to an increase in rising warm air and storm clouds, creating heavier rains and devastating floods there. And wetter weather is also likely in the southern USA, where winter storms and flooding rains can be intensified from California to Florida.
Lovely.
In contrast, Australia and Southeast Asia are likely to be hotter and drier than normal, raising the threat of drought and forest fires. And there's a chance of weaker monsoon rains in India too. Meanwhile, in the UK, the impact of El Nino is less dramatic, but it does bring a tendency for colder winters. El Nino episodes usually last around a year, and they occur every 2 to 7 years, but they don't follow a predictable pattern, and no two El Nino events are the same. But what we do know is that El Nino often raises the global temperature by around 0.1 degrees Celsius on average. Look at this chart that shows how global temperatures have varied over the past 70 years. The peak times of highest temperatures often coincide with El Nino episodes, shown here in red. The opposite of El Nino is La Nina, the colder phase of the El Nino Southern Oscillation, or ENSO cycle, shown here in the blue colours. Now, since 2020, we've seen 3 consecutive La Nina events. But now, climate scientists are predicting an increasing chance of El Nino developing over the coming months. In fact, we've recently seen some extremely warm waters developing in the eastern Pacific. So where does that leave us for the rest of 2023? Well, here's the Met Office's prediction of global temperatures this year, which is forecast to be around about 1.2 degrees above the pre-industrial era. But with the influence of a possible El Nino, it could be even hotter and potentially record-breaking.
Record-breaking and killing. And killing.
Rough
Yeah,
stuff. Rough
it's
stuff.
rough stuff.
So let's go ahead and continue with this article. The impact on the temperatures is relaxed a few months after the peak of any El Nino. So this is why 2024 will probably be the warmest on record. And we will be close to 1.5 degree days, and perhaps we will temporarily go over. El Nino will likely disrupt the weather patterns around the world, weaken the monsoon, and threaten more wildfires in Australia. But there are more fundamental worries that as more heat goes into the ocean, the waters may be less able to store the excess energy. And there are concerns that the heat contained in the oceans won't stay there. Several scientists contacted for this story were reluctant to go on the record about the implications. Well, use your own imagination. They won't say it.
They're reluctant, yeah. They don't
use your own imagination, figure it out. One spoke of being extremely worried and completely stressed. So that tells you where scientists are at, and they won't say it. Some research has shown that the world is warming in jumps, where little changes over a period of years, and then there are sudden leaps upwards, like steps on stairs, closely linked to the development of El Nino. There is some hope in this scenario, according to Karina von Schuckmann. Temperatures may come down again after the La Nina subsides. We still have a window where we can act, and we should use this to reduce the consequences. So I have a little message for Karina von Schuckmann.
Come on the show.
Wake up, darling. So cherry picking data. Let's talk about El Nino and La Nina, right? You might have seen in that video that we just played, if you saw the 1998, there was a very strong El Nino in 1998, and then the temperatures seemed to level off. The conservatives and the Republican Party jumped on that 12-year period since it was such a strong El Nino, and then it kind of, tapered off and leveled. Right. They said, global warming's over.
Right.
This is the evidence. Don't worry about a thing. All those, alarmists are just, full of crap.
Right.
So, Karina, look more deeper, darling. Look deeply at the data, and don't let your emotions, dictate what you're going to say as a scientist.
We'll have to tag her on Twitter.
Yeah, poor Karina von Schuckman says things like that, but I don't blame her,
All right, what's next? Oh boy.
Now
we are moving to another potentially I mean, people are talking about it. See, we're not being doomers. We are just reading mainstream news. And the nation's been around forever. And Katrina Vanden Heuvel is the editor. So I'm going to take this one. We can create a world where artificial intelligence meets its spectacular promise to improve the lives of all humanity, but only if we work together. I'm sorry. Work together. I don't know. Do we work together for anything? Chat GPT, which I actually want to try. The new generative AI chatbot created by OpenAI was released less than 5 months ago, but it has already become the fastest growing internet application in history. It's almost powerful enough to work some white collar jobs. The New York Times columnist Farhad Manjoo says it's already changed the way he does his. For all the talk of AI's potential, the people who understand it best are frightened by how quickly the technology is accelerating. On the one hand, it could usher in unprecedented human health and happiness. On the other, it has potential for massive economic destruction, weakened national security, and the erosion of personal privacy. Not too cool, huh? It gets worse. In a survey of AI experts conducted last year, almost half said that AI would lead to human extinction was 10% or more. Oh my God. Now, that's scary, right?
It is.
Yeah. It gets worse, right? Human extinction. And even Elon Musk, a founding member of OpenAI, and sometimes rarely seen as concerned about consequences, said last week that AI has the potential of civilization destruction. Oh my goodness. We are at an inflection point with new AI technology, demands new regulations. But AI development is outpacing regulators' ability to act or even understand. To avert the worst possible outcome, leaders need to listen to the experts who can anticipate the ramifications and regulate now before it's too late. We've seen this show before. Proponents of the industrial and digital revolutions dangled utopian visions in front of our eyes while shunning the regulations that would have ensured safer and more equitable change. As a result, we're still uncovering and cleaning up industrial waste sites from the 1800s and only beginning to understand how our failure to regulate social media created crises of democracy and public health. AI may be our most threatening revolution yet. Google and CEO Sundar Pichai has said that the impact of AI will be more profound than fire. But even cavemen understood that playing with fire could have third-degree consequences. The United States government is woefully ill-equipped, and I will say that I believe that they are woefully ill-equipped because everybody's behind the times. You know, the older people, and I'm not being ageist, but it's not that quick to jump on. Republican Representative Jay Obernolte, the only member of Congress with a master's degree in AI, has to explain to his colleagues that the threat will not come from evil robots with red lasers.
No, it's not going to be Terminator World?
No red lasers. Congress is clearly not ready to legislate, but we cannot let the complexity of AI prevent us from acting today while we unravel the broader consequences we'll face tomorrow. So, as Representative Ted Lieu reminds us, we don't fully understand all the ways pharmaceuticals improve health, but the FDA still regulates drug manufacturing to keep us safe. As essential first step is to make sure that AI does not fall victim to the same monopolistic practices that undermine the first age of the internet. FTC Chair Lina Khan is already gearing up the agency to watch out for antitrust violations to make sure the technology is not dangerously concentrated in too few hands, you know? The Biden administration has taken steps to ask questions and get better informed. The Commerce Department is seeking public comment as it considers measures to regulate AI. And last year, the White House unveiled a blueprint for an AI Bill of Rights. But critics have noted that its protections are toothless and uneven. As the government gathers information about this new technology, it cannot make the mistake of privileging the voices of the tech industry already lobbying against regulations. Instead, it should look to states like California and Texas who are regulating AI tools to protect civil rights and demand transparency. Better yet, look overseas. As usual, Europe is ahead of us when it comes to regulation. ChatGPT was released only 6 months ago, but several EU countries are already investigating privacy concerns. Italy has banned it outright. Ooh, wow. A group of EU officials have called on President Biden to convene a summit to encourage collaboration on global solutions. The White House should accept the invitation. Last week, 2 AI experts in The Economist called for an international agency for AI to coordinate a global response, not unlike the International Atomic Energy Agency. But as Robert Wright notes, the problem doesn't have to reach nuclear levels to merit global governance. No country wants to be first to step in and regulate. That's why we have to do it together. Given the breathtaking speed at which AI is evolving, it's unlikely that we will find a one-size-all-fits solution. Addressing the potential threat of AI will require humanity to admit what we don't know and a willingness to heed the criticism of skeptics as much as the promises of evangelists. We can create a world where AI meets a spectacular promise to improve the lives of all humanity only if we work together and use our unique capacity to make moral choices to develop a truly intelligent and not artificial response. Pretty heavy. That's pretty heavy.
It is.
Wow.
It is. And, AI is a pretty darn scary thing. I've seen the output of that Chat GPT. We tried it at work, and it's pretty scary what it does. It's kind of an amazing tool. I don't know if you've tried it yet, Sandy.
I have not had time. I would like to, at least see what the Chat GPS is all about, or GPT, not GPS, GPT.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
well, moving on, guys. We have now, Jennifer is going to read Universe 25. Now, this was a research project that took place already, and it is kind of chilling. Here we go.
Okay, guys. Universe 25, the horrifying study that predicted human extinction. This is one of the longest and most important scientific experiments. Cataclysm, an apocalypse, or end of all ends. Many names have been given throughout history to the end of humanity as we know it. From a philosophical perspective, everything has to end. Therefore, we have always expected it. Scriptures from various religions tried to describe what the end of the world would look like, but those started to be considered only fairy tale stories. Humanity has not really analyzed the possibility of human extinction and how would this really look from a scientific perspective until 1954, when a man named John B. Calhoun carried out an 18-year-long study named Universe 25. John B. Calhoun, an American ethologist and behavioral researcher, conducted a study titled Universe 25 that examined the consequences of overpopulation on rats and made dire predictions that these effects would have on humans. In collaboration with the National Institute of Mental Health, Calhoun developed an ideal mouse universe for his research. Unlimited food and water with many floors and private nesting spaces that first appeared to be a rat and mouse utopia gradually devolved into a tumultuous overcrowding that caused the population to decline and was then followed by the members' unsettling and abnormal behaviors. On the Universe 25 experiment, which Calhoun repeated 25 times in various scales, after years of method development, he saw unsettling, consistent outcomes each time. These habitats have a straightforward design. Electric fences split the layout's 10 by 14 foot rectangle into 4 equally sized pieces. Each part included a food hopper, a water source, a nesting space that were similar to one another. So it looks like a pretty,
cushy hotel.
Little cushy mouse hotel.
Yeah.
Yeah. The room he planned for his last experiment could have held 3,840 mice, but only 2,200 mice ended up there. And from then on, the population started to fall, while showing a range of odd and sometimes destructive behaviors. The outcome demonstrated what Calhoun called a behavioral sink, or an increase in abnormal behaviors brought on by the stress of a large population. The dominant males occasionally bite and injure the tails of other members, especially young children. This behavioral sink would show up in females as a decreased capacity for raising young and creating nests. Since many females adopted more violent behaviors or would forego motherly responsibilities entirely, the infant death rate exceeded 90%. Regardless of the scale of experiments, the same set of events would transpire each time. The mice would mate and breed in large quantities. Eventually, a leveling off would occur. The rodents would develop either hostile or antisocial behaviors. The population would trail off to extinction. According to Calhoun, there were 2 stages to the death phase. The first death, which was characterized by the loss of a reason for living beyond merely existing, such as the desire to mate, raise children, and establish a place in society, and the second death, which was the actual death and the extinction of Universe 25. With their findings, they concluded the experiment while predicting that these pathological alterations would eventually result in the extinction of the colonies. He would select the 4 healthiest males and females at the end of the experiment and allow them to reproduce. But their behavior had been irrevocably changed, and none of their offspring had survived. Though wildly controversial when first published, Calhoun's theory has raised concern over the years that social breakdown of Universe 25 could ultimately serve as a metaphor for the trajectory of the human race. And that is that. Kind of sounds a lot like life on Earth, doesn't it?
It does.
Holy crap.
It
Horrible.
does.
Oh, God.
It does. Yes. All right. Now we come to Scientific American, where we're going to read, Will Humans Ever Go Extinct? Whoa. And this is Scientific Americans, guys. Will humans ever go extinct? It's probably a matter of when and how, not if, we humans will meet our doom. The species Homo sapiens evolved some 300,000 years ago and has come to dominate the Earth, unlike any species that came before. But how long can humans last? Eventually, humans will go extinct. At the most wildly optimistic estimate, our species will last perhaps another billion years, but end when the expanding envelope of the sun swells outward and heats the planet to a Venus-like state. But a billion years is a long time. 1 billion years ago, life on Earth consisted of microbes. Multicellular life didn't make its debut until 600 million years ago when sponges proliferated. What life will look like in another billion years is anyone's guess. Though one modeling study published in 2021 in Nature Geoscience suggests the Earth's atmosphere will contain little oxygen. So by then, making it likely that anaerobic microbes, rather than humans, will be the last living Earthlings. If surviving to see the sun fry, the Earth is a long shot. When is humanity likely to meet its doom? Paleontologically, mammalian species usually persist for 1 million years, says Henry G., a paleontologist and senior editor at Nature, at that journal, Nature, which is very popular, who is working on a book on the extinction of humans. Oh boy, that's going to be interesting. That would put human species in its youth. But G doesn't think these rules apply for us. Humans are rather, or as Michael Dowd would call it, what? Homo colossus, Jennifer? Homo colossus. Humans are rather an exceptional species, he says. We could last for millions of years, or we could all drop down next week. Opportunities for doomsday abound. Oh, wow. Humans could be wiped out by a catastrophic asteroid strike, commit self-destruction with worldwide nuclear war, or succumb to the ravages caused by the climate emergency. But humans are a hardy bunch, so the most likely scenario involves a combo of catastrophes that could wipe us out. So pick your poison. Some species killers are out of control. In a 2021 paper, the journal Icarus, for example, researchers describe how asteroids comparable to the ones spanning 10 to 15 kilometers in diameter that killed off the Nonovian dinosaurs hit Earth approximately 250 years to 500 million years. In a preprint paper posted on the server arxiv.org, physicists Philip Lubin and Alexander Cohen calculate that humanity would have the ability to save itself from a dino killer-sized asteroid given 6 months warning and an arsenal of nuclear penetrators to blow the space rock into a cloud of harmless pebbles.
That will then rain onto your head.
Yeah,
no
right.
problem.
Your head,
Don't
your
worry about
house,
it.
yeah, in everything. With less warning or a larger asteroid, Lubin and Cohen suggest that humanity should give up and party or move to Mars or the moon to party. Currently, the biggest asteroid that scientists know of with the potential of striking Earth is called 29075, 1950 DA. That's easy. It just rolls off the tongue. It is. How about the one that just fucks us? It is a mere 1,300 meters across and has a 1 in 500,000 chance of hitting our world in March 2880, according to a 2022 risk analysis by the European Space Agency. Woo! Incoming space rocks aside, many threats to humanity are of our own doing. Making nuclear war, the climate emergency, ecological collapse. Our own tech might do us in the form of sentient artificial intelligence that decides to snuff out its creators, as some AI critics have suggested, which we just read. An all-out nuclear war could easily destroy humanity, says Francois Diaz-Morin, associate editor for nuclear affairs at the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists. The last time humans dropped nuclear bombs on one another, only one country, the U.S., had nuclear warheads. So there was no risk of nuclear retaliation. Well, that's not the case today. The bombs are a lot bigger. Oh my God. These bombs, which struck the Japanese cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945, packed the equivalent of 15 and 21 kilotons of TNT, respectively. Together, they killed an estimated 110 to 210,000 people.
They don't even know. Give or take 100,000.
Yeah, give or take 100,000, right, Jennifer? Oh, my God.
Right.
A single modern-day 300 kiloton nuclear weapon dropped on New York City, for example, would kill 1 million people in 24 hours. Diaz-Morin says, a regional nuclear war, such as one between India and Pakistan, could kill 27 million people in short term, whereas a full-scale nuclear war between U.S. and Russia could cause an estimated 360 million direct deaths, he adds. I don't think any amount of iodine is going to help us in our prepper cabinets. The threat to humanity's very existence would come after the war, when the soot from massive fires ignited by the bombings would rapidly alter the climate in a scenario known as nuclear winter. Fears of nuclear winter may have receded since the end of the Cold War, Diaz-Morin says, but research shows that the environmental consequences would be severe. Even a regional nuclear war would damage the ozone layer, block out sunlight, and reduce precipitation globally. The result would be a global famine that might kill more than 5 billion people in just 2 years, depending on the size and number of detonations. That possibility of destroying humanity is still here, and it's real. Death by ecological contamination or the climate emergency would be slower, but still within that realm of possibility. Already, humans are facing health stressors from chronic pollution that have been exacerbated by the additional heat brought on by climate change, says Maureen Litchfeld, Dean of the School of Public Health at the University of Pittsburgh. Hotter temperatures force people to breathe more rapidly to dispel warmth, which draws more pollution into their lungs. The climate emergency deepens existing problems with food security. For instance, persistent drought can devastate cropland and infectious disease. The interconnectedness of climate change and health inequities in health inequities and inequities in general is what is impacting our global population. So, the perfect storm. Will these inequities eventually lead to a species-wide downfall? It's not easy to calculate that likelihood, they say. Say that the climate emergency will kill us all, said Luke Kemp, a research associate at the Center for the Study of Existential Risk. I didn't even know there was one. A Center for Study of Existential Risk. That's in Cambridge. But it's probably not realistic to consider risks individually anyway, Kemp says. So when we look at the history of things like mass extinctions and societal collapses, it's never just one thing that happens, Kemp says. If you're trying to rely on a single silver bullet to kill everyone in a single event, you have to write sci-fi, so you're shit out of luck. The end of humanity is far more likely to be brought about by multiple factors, Kemp says, a pileup of disasters. Though apocalyptic movies often turn to viruses and bacteria and fungi to wipe out huge swaths of population, a pandemic alone is unlikely to drive humanity to extinction simply because the immune system is a broad and effective defense, says Amesh Ajala, an infectious disease physician at Johns Hopkins Center for Health Security. A pandemic could be devastating and lead to severe upheaval. The Black Death killed 30 to 50% of the population in Europe, but it's unlikely that a pathogen would kill all of humanity. Ajala, I said it wrong before. Ajala says, yes, an infectious disease could kill a lot of people, he says, but then you're going to have a group of people that are resilient and they survive. Humans also have tools to fight back against a pathogen, from medical treatments to vaccines to the social distancing measures that became familiar worldwide with COVID. There is one example of a mammalian species that may have been entirely wiped out by an infectious disease, he says. The Christmas Island rat, also called the Maclear's rat, an endemic island species that may have gone extinct because of the introduction of a parasite. We are not helpless like the Christmas Island rat who couldn't get away from that island. We have the ability to change our fate. If infectious disease contributes to the downfall of humanity, it's likely to be just one piece of a larger puzzle. Imagine a world pushed to an upheaval by sea level rise and disruption to agriculture from climate change. The humans of this climate-ravaged world attempt a geoengineering solution that goes wrong. That situation worsens. Resources are scarce and a bunch of countries have nuclear weapons. And oh, by the way, the mosquitoes that carry yellow fever now range as far as north as Canada. In this scenario, it's not hard to see how the human population could decline and disappear in the face of an arsenal of challenges, according to Kemp. Worst case scenarios are understudied, Kemp says. In climate science, for example, there is a lot of research into what the world might look like at 2 or 3 degrees Celsius warmer than the pre-industrial average, but very little looking at what an increase of 5 or 6 degrees C might look like. This is partly because scientists have a hard time predicting the effects of that much warming to, and they also have a lot of pressure from the politicians not to appear alarmist, Kemp says. Models of future worst-case scenarios also tend to do an inadequate job of predicting the cascading effects of disaster. The general field of existential risk is relatively new, nascent, and just understudied, he said. So there are questions as to how much humans should worry about something as big picture as extinction. While some see the question as pressing, controversial tech billionaires such as Elon Musk and Peter Thiel have funded organizations to studying the risk of transformative technologies. Others argue that today's problems are urgent enough. Already humans are heating the globe, overexploiting and destroying nature, using land and water unsustainably, and creating chemicals that are harmful to all life. Often in service to the globally well-off, says Sarah Cornell, who studies global sustainability at Stockholm Resilience Center at Stockholm University. Today's reality is that some human beings are undermining or even destroying living conditions of many, many, many people. Cornell says, from a human scale perspective, this is an existential crisis, already not a risk, something up ahead. Wow. Scientific American, right the fuck on, man. That was pretty good.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like they're waking up and smelling the coffee,
My
right, Sandy?
gosh. I would say so. Is that the new... I wonder how Michael Mann feels about Scientific American's articles. Oh, shit. All right, I brought the controversy in. But now, guys, we're going to move over because, of course, we have to close with Jessica. She's so great.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Absolutely.
So take up the rear, and then we'll do a little maybe questions in the end or whatever might be coming up, and then we're done.
Yeah, guys. Okay, we're going to cover Jessica Wildfire's entry. Does it really help to keep beating up on doomers? I don't think so. Greenhouse gas emissions keep going up. In fact, they're going up even faster than they were 10 years ago. Despite all the optimism and its promises, we're not heading in the right direction. We're not replacing fossil fuels with green energy. We're stacking it on top of everything else we burn. Every year, we consume more and more energy than we can replace with alternatives. The very governments who pledge to do better turn right around and approve more drilling contracts. A large swath of the public, including liberals now, offer endless excuses for these continued failures. You can go and look all of this up. I already have. We don't have to get rid of everything, but we've got to rethink what we want our civilization to look like if we want to survive.
Those gaseous people they are.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sorry, but a sustainable future doesn't include most of the things we've come to expect out of endless growth economies. The minute you start talking like this in public, someone shows up to call you a doomer. They say you're not contributing anything positive to the conversation. They tell you to be quiet. They do the same thing to anyone dealing with obesity, depression, anxiety, or trauma. They lump us all together under the label miserable, then give themselves a big old pat on the back for not being that way. Well, I'm writing this for anyone who's been called such a nasty name. I've got news for you. You're not.
Nope.
Being terse doesn't make you a doomer. There seems to be a misunderstanding. In its original sense, doomism refers to the idea that it's not only too late to stop or mitigate climate change or global warming or whatever you want to call it, but that we might as well stop trying. Real doomers want to give up. That's not me. Is that you? Here's my position. We're not doing anything what it takes to address global warming. We've already done enough damage to make life extremely difficult for ourselves and our children. Millions of people around the world are already dealing with the horrible consequences of Western consumption and greed. It's worth pointing out that climate scientists didn't come up with net zero by 2050. That was offered by the IEA as a normative path. It's been embraced by corporations and politicians because it hovers safely in the distant future. It allows for 2 more decades of empty promises and excuses. Most climate scientists are telling us we're out of time here and now. Here's a bonus. Look at the history of civil rights or anything else. Expecting the public to do things for their own sake has never worked. The majority of people have always been forced to do the right thing. That's not doomism. Maybe people don't like hearing that. Maybe they disagree with it. It's not doom and gloom. When someone calls it that, it just means they're not paying attention. They're not listening. It doesn't matter how optimistic or positive they claim to be, they're not. You're offering solutions. When someone calls you a doomer, they're probably accusing you of failing to provide solutions. It's a common strategy.
Yeah.
They're wrong. That's happened to me so many times.
Well, yeah, on our show.
Right. You do offer solutions. They're just not the kind of convenient ones they like to talk about. They don't want to eat less meat. They don't want to drive or fly less. They don't want to buy less. They don't want to keep an eye on how much water or energy they use.
And then we're going to flush them. There they go. Bye. And not
Instead of examining their own habits, they want to come up with a story that everyone can keep consuming as much as they want. Somehow, magically, green energy will pay for it all. You've probably dispelled this myth. Naturally, they're angry. I guess it makes sense for them to come up with a name for us, something that distracts everyone from the uncomfortable truths that we point out. It's easy to call someone a doomer. It's harder to examine yourself. That's why they do it. They say we're not offering solutions. On the contrary, we're offering the only solutions that make any sense. Using less energy remains the only strategy that has actually any impact. Consuming less is the only way we've managed to influence corporate action. If we don't buy it, then making it ceases to be profitable. Imagine someone calling you a doomer, blaming corporations, and then heading down to Starbucks. That's them. You have a right to express your emotions. You have a right to voice your anger and frustration. You have a right to speak out about your sense of hopelessness and despair if that's what you feel. It doesn't help to keep it bottled up. Toxic optimism doesn't help. It invalidates. It tells someone that they're wrong for feeling the way they do. It says they should feel something else instead. Whether it's about climate or anything else, that person now feels judged, not heard. They might pretend to smile. They might stop talking about how they feel. Those emotions haven't changed, though. They just went underground. If anything, they get worse when you bury them. Now, they can't even say anything. They just perform good vibes in order to avoid someone else's ridicule. In America, that's healthy. Great stuff, huh? You don't...
That's for you, Jen. She's right.
You don't deserve all the scorn you're getting. Here's something I find ironic. People who call themselves optimists are the first to warn us about all the judgment, shame, and ridicule. They tell us that these are ineffective tools at modifying someone else's behavior. Instead, we should be nice. So, I'm wondering why these same people feel free to level all kinds of judgment, shame, and ridicule at those of us who are just trying to be honest about the state of the world. Why is it okay to judge us? Why is it okay to lecture us? Why is it okay to write nasty comments directed at us or about us? Yeah. Why is it okay to harass us and make all kinds of accusations and implications? These things aren't supposed to work, right? So why are they doing it towards us? They refuse to say anything bad about billionaires or their private jets. They won't go up against the middle-class brats who laugh off climate change and refuse to modify their behaviors. With them, they want to practice kindness and understanding. With you, though, they're going to take all the judgment and scorn they might secretly wish they could direct at the casual climate deniers, and they're going to dump it on you. They're going to attack the group who's actually doing what they should, and then some. They're going to criticize your messaging. You don't deserve it. Their approach doesn't work. These optimists love to say that doom and gloom isn't helping. According to them, it only makes things worse. They seem to forget that climate doomism only emerged recently as a response to the failures of incrementalism and tech bro optimism. If we're going to talk about whose approach works best, let's stop and consider that moderates and their optimism have had a solid 30 years to get the job done. They haven't. If you really want to be terse, I think you could even describe the results as pathetic. Again, if you look at history, it was the outrage and the urgency of the 1970s that seemed to result in real change. And that's when they started Earth Day, right?
Yes,
Interesting.
1970.
There was a burst of optimism and we can do this in the 70s. And then it just went, choo. And, that's getting to be 50 years ago. Look at religion, arguably the most powerful institution on earth. Christians aren't good for its own sake. They're scared of hell. There's only one real question now. Frankly, I think this entire debate between doomers and optimists has become pointless. It misses by a mile. I'm assuming it's already too late to stop climate change. Again, the science tells us that if we stopped all industrial activity now, things would keep getting worse for decades. On the other hand, every single private jet ride ensures that nobody after us will stand a chance either. So in a sense, it's also not too late for some future civilization. Here's the real question. If it's too late for us, what are we supposed to do? What does too late even mean? Maybe it's too late to stop the next 10 or 20 years of droughts, floods, fires, and storms. Maybe it's too late to save thousands of species that are about to go extinct. It's not too late for me to live a life of meaning and purpose for as long as I can without adding more to the problem. It's not too late for me to have a nice afternoon with my family. It's not too late to go for a walk or read a book or enjoy a simple meal. That's what we should do. For what it's worth, I think it's funny that those who call themselves Christian would get onto us about doom and gloom. Their entire world view rests on some people spending an entire eternity in hell if they don't think or act a certain way. As for me, I only believe in one kind of hell. It's the kind we
make. Oh, that was she's so good.
She's so good,
she's
right?
So good. Yeah, I was trying to find the applause for her.
Yeah,
she's really
so
good. So I think what a show. You want to bring up the rear here, babe?
Well, I mean, obviously, extinction is a fact. I mean, it's going to happen. Everything that lives must die, entire species, nothing lasts forever. And it's interesting the levels that they're willing to take on board. Like the guy who's saying, well, human beings could last another billion years. What are you smoking, buddy?
I want some.
Yeah, exactly. And yet Scientific American is really taking it on, and they're usually a pretty conservative periodical.
I think
with
so.
Their will humans go extinct? That Universe 25 article was pretty interesting, seeing like if you give things all the food and water and perfect living conditions, then they just end up imploding anyway.
Yep.
And interesting to see how AI is going to expand in the next while, and will AI contribute to human extinction? So it's very interesting time. El Nino is upon us. It's going to happen. It's already happening, and it is going to release a lot of heating into the atmosphere, and it's going to change our climate ongoing. It's not going to go back to the way it was before the El Nino. Anybody who thinks that, like our little Karina,
Yeah.
needs to wake up and smell the coffee on that one.
Yeah,
So
right.
very interesting.
Yep.
Very interesting.
Well, I did enjoy this tonight. Definitely.
I did too.
And as I really don't like to use the label of doomer, I don't like labels. I've made that very clear in my shows, though. Doomer adjacent, doomer, what does it matter? It's how you feel in here. It's what you do with your life and the choices you make. And if people want to judge, screw them.
There you go, Sandy.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's great to have you all. Thank you very much for coming, all of you. We will be back next Friday. And I believe that Kelly Lincoln is coming back with me again on Tuesday night. We have lots to talk about. She's always very interesting. And thanks. Thank you also for everybody that donated to the channel fundraiser, because I got the subscriptions paid for a year, for two and a half. So that's good. That's really good. So I want to thank you all. Thank you so much. All right, Jen. I will see you next week.
Yeah. See you all next week. Stay cool.
Yeah. We got some music. We got some goodbye video. Thank you for coming. Yes, yes, yes.